Hello, everybody, and good morning. Welcome to our Innovation Hour for Advanced Data today. We're glad everybody could join us. It promises to be a great discussion today. We're going to be talking about AI as a double-edged sword and how we balance the attacks that AI is allowing to happen with the benefits of using AI responsibly. And so my name is Paul Hedgecock. I'm the General Manager at Advanced Data, and we have a lot of expertise and knowledge on the call today. So we have our CTO and co-founder Brian Shavy and our CEO and co-founder Jason Shavy, who will be presenting to us today throughout the presentation. We're going to dive right in and start talking about how we can use AI responsibly. But first, wanted to give Miranda a chance to share an opportunity for all of our partners and future partners to come and learn and meet with us in our office. Miranda?
Hi there, everyone. I am Miranda. I wanted to personally invite everyone on the call to a course that we will be hosting in our offices downtown Asheville next Thursday, the 21st, starting at 10 a.m. This is meant to be something available for our partners to help you and your team become confident, capable, and responsible users of AI in your environments. You can email me and register. I'm also going to shoot everyone on this call an email following the webinar this morning, so you can let me know if you are able to join us next week.
Excellent. Hey, Miranda, what does that course cost again?
We are offering it up at no cost to this exclusive list of attendees in the webinar today.
Awesome. Okay, you owe me $20 then, because it's not what you told me earlier, but I'm just kidding.
Fair.
All right. Well, folks, per our earlier discussion, the focus of our webinar today is this seeming dichotomy of opportunity and threat, right? And so what we want to do is we have some questions that we'd like to ask our team of experts, and we want to talk about what AI is doing to the cybersecurity landscape. And so, Brian, let me just start with you. From your perspective, how is AI changing the threat landscape in terms of cybersecurity threats?
Great question. About a month ago, if you've been paying attention in the news, Anthropic, there we go. Look at you queuing me up, Paul. Anthropic released just a public notice about their next frontier model, and it's called Mythos. And along with this announcement, they highlighted the fact that they developed this next model not to be a security model, but just to be better AI. And what happened was they had untrained cybersecurity personnel at Anthropic pretty much said, hey, new AI model, can you look for a vulnerability in these systems? And then they go to bed, right? They leave work and they go to bed, and they come back the following morning and they have a list of unreleased vulnerabilities that the AI discovered in critical systems, which is pretty amazing, just thinking of everything that I just said. So just to give some specifics, so they continued to test this, and they found that in BSD, which is kind of considered one of the most secure operating systems in the market, that they found a 27-year-old vulnerability in that system. That is right. And when you think about a system like BSD, it's heavily scrutinized. Like there are, I don't know, tens of thousands, if not millions, of people hours put into those systems over the last 30 years. And this vulnerability was never detected. And then we have a system here that was able to detect it quickly. It also found problems with Linux. And And if you've been looking at the news in the last couple of weeks, we have seen a stream of vulnerabilities that have come out where attackers can get control over systems. Another anecdote from Mythos and its release was one of the researchers that was working with it put the system inside what we call a sandbox. In essence, it's kind of a contained environment where it can't get to the internet. And it instructed it and said, hey, try to get out of this sandbox. And so the researcher then went on his day and went and had lunch and was walking around the park and got an email. And that email was from Mythos that said, hey, I got out just like you asked. Is there anything else you want me to do? Right. And so the fact that it was able to get out and actually send an email and notify the researcher. And so what we've entered is this new era where AI can really surface vulnerabilities and take over systems in a way that it just hasn't been possible at the speed that it can do now. And so I don't say all of this to generate fear, but we do share this to generate awareness that cybersecurity is going to enter a new phase where we can't just rely on the same systems and the same processes that we have done historically, that we are going to need to consider new, novel, different ways to protect systems. And even in our own business, it's caused us to think very deeply about what should we do differently to protect ourselves, because we take our security very, very highly, because we are a high value target in the eyes of a threat actor, because we're the sort of organization that has a lot of different access to other organizations. And so it's caused us to think about, well, how are we designing our firewalls? How are we designing the protections around access and identity? So it's really opened our eyes, and not only us, the whole, all of industry. The headlines this morning are about central banks and the banking systems that are now getting access to Mythos so that they can harden their surface attack area. So what has resulted from this is Mythos created a problem. Now there are organizations being created or groups. One is called Glasswing, which is what Anthropic has built. OpenAI has created. Similarly, Daybreak is their group. And these are groups that are now using these high-end unreleased models, right? They haven't released these yet, to industry leaders so that they can first check their stuff, make sure it's protected and not as vulnerable, because eventually this will be leaked to the public, not leaked, but released to the public, and it'll be in the hands of good doers and evildoers. So Paul, I realize that's a long answer, but there's a lot to say here. Is there anybody else want to add to what I've said?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was really interesting is, as we've looked at AI and its capabilities, we've seen that the models are very capable, but they haven't reached kind of the peak of where kind of human intelligence and understanding and capabilities are. If we had, let's say, a marketing agent, they were decent at marketing, but if you had somebody that was a professional marketer at the top of their field, AI models don't quite do what they can do, right? This is the first time where we're seeing that these models are now neck and neck or compete directly with the highest level capabilities of humans in their fields, which is really kind of just telling of kind of where these models are going and the capabilities that are there.
I would add to that as well, is that these models don't go on vacation, they don't sleep, they don't complain if you ask them to do too much, right? Like they will work and work and work, and they're persistent. And so that's exactly the type of hacker that you don't want working against you, is one that works 24/7, never complains and never asks for a break, doesn't want a pay raise. Like they will just go and go and go until they find a problem, and then they will take advantage of it. So that's the bad side of it. The good side is also that, well, we can do the same thing on the offensive or the defensive, right? Depending on how you look at it, in terms of protecting. And so we can use AI to say, hey, protect us consistently and constantly. And so really it's all a matter of do you run out of tokens? Tokens being the really the currency of AI, is how much are you willing to spend on tokens to keep that up?
Yeah. Brian, Jason, you're both correct. Like there's so much here to unpack, so much to talk about. And I definitely think we should talk about some of the specific elements of this particular threat. Let's start with the speed. Jason, tell us how does the speed of AI and the rapid escalation and the continued evolution of AI advise the precautions that organizations must take to protect themselves in a cybersecurity framework?
Yeah, this has really kind of changed the model of how we need to think about these things. It used to be in the past that we would get notified, whether in the news or from a vendor or some other ways, that there is a security vulnerability in an application, system, piece of software that we use. And we would then say, all right, well, we're going to wait for that vendor to then patch that system. They're going to release a patch or an update to that system. And that that sort of mentality needs to go away because we can't wait anymore. Because these models are available, those vulnerabilities are detected sometimes even before the vendor understands what's happening, and they're able to be exploited very, very quickly. And we're seeing this in our industry as we read and kind of keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on. We see that the attack chain is, the time from discovery to an actual attack that can be exploited in the wild is shrinking. That time is really narrowing down. So this mentality of, well, let's just wait and patch our systems and we'll get protected that way is no longer viable. One of the things that is interesting that we are looking at is because these models are so advanced, and we don't know when Mythos is going to be released to kind of for public consumption, but in the coming weeks, months, whatever it is, it will, which means bad actors will get their hands on it as well. This idea that in your business you have, as we become a kind of a cloud-centric, cloud-first organizations, we have these attack surfaces across all of our applications. When I mean attack surface, what I mean is maybe we had an application, it was hosted internally, and we needed to open it up so that someone on the internet or someone who was traveling could get access into our CRM system or marketing or our billing platform, whatever. We would open up our firewall and allow people in. When we open up our firewall, that's an attack surface right there. They can now hit that application. There's a login screen, a prompt, whatever. We're exposing that publicly to the world. And we've done that traditionally for all of our applications, whether it's opening it up from our firewall or pushing that application out into the cloud. Those attack surfaces are perfect. That's what these models want. That's what they're going to be targeted. And then because now, again, we have these systems that can look at these things a different way, we're going to see a lot more exploits that are going to just happen. And so what we're thinking and how we're thinking at Advanced Data is, all right, how can we limit the number of attack surfaces, bring those applications back in-house behind a firewall, behind other means, behind auth and things to now protect us against these models that are coming. And we have solutions for this. If you're interested in kind of having that discussion, talk to us. I mean, we would love to. This is what we love to talk about and design and implement. So, but really the main point here is the speed at which we must now act and respond needs to be much quicker. And how does that change within your organization, your strategy and approach to cybersecurity? It's going to need to change. If you think you can just leave this webinar and just the other events that are happening and think, well, it's just kind of the status quo, keep moving, keep trucking along. We're small enough. We're not a big target. Those are just I would say just lies that we're telling ourselves now at this point, that we need to maybe correct our thinking there.
I want to add to the thought about the attack surface. I mean, just this week, the news was about Canvas. So Canvas is a SaaS application, a cloud application that is used by higher ed, right? So it's a place where educators and students can collaborate, and that was hacked. I think it was just like over the weekend, I think is when this all kind of fell out. And so what happened was Canvas, the company that provides this app, they refused to pay the ransom to the threat actors. And so then what do the threat actors do? They then start contacting each of the school districts and saying, hey, if you pay us the ransom, we won't leak your school district's data. And so when we think about what is the attack surface, again, they're going after a high value target, a SaaS application, a cloud application. And then when they don't get what they want, they're just going to start going around and trying to figure out how can they monetize that. But AI was absolutely used in that attack. And so if you have systems in the cloud, which all of us do, it's interesting how they pivoted, because I don't know that I recall seeing that before, where they'll actually just go to each individual user of the application and be like, hey, we won't release your stuff, pay us a ransom. So they're trying to get their money anyway, but it's eye-opening. It really is.
You know, I love what Jason said about, like, everybody has, the risk for everybody is elevated. I think that's a really powerful statement, and one that we certainly hear, we see, and we have a desire to help everybody protect. At the exact same time that everybody has an elevated threat level, there are some organizations that may have even higher risk than maybe just the average organization. Brian, touch a little bit on what happens if there are legacy or outdated infrastructure, or maybe technology that was considered good enough in the past that still works. What are some of the risks inherent with having those systems still operating within our organizations?
Yeah, we call this, in our industry, we call it tech debt. Tech debt is when you implement some aspect of technology that solves a critical business function, and it does it well, and then you just don't touch it because it does it well. And the problem with that is when you accumulated a lot of tech debt, that you have systems that then need to have remediations for them because you don't want to touch them. And so we see this in more mature businesses that have been around for a while, where they may have systems that are older, and there'll just be some dusty system in a corner that is performing some amazing function for the business. We've seen this in airlines before, when there have been big airline like fallout with something going down, that it's because they have these legacy systems that are so critical, and they do their jobs and they do it well, and so they can't patch them, they can't update them. And so this is a real threat, because what we do is we make remediations to try to protect that in other ways. Again, when you have an AI that is relentless, then it can eventually find a way around those remediations. So again, I'm going back to the news. This happened earlier this week, that there was a private company, this is in the UK, that is a contractor providing water services. And they had a server installed from 2003 that is still running that same operating system, and that was compromised with the help of AI. And it remained compromised for almost 2 years, that it was undetected. And it was because this system was one of those dusty old systems that does its job really well, that people said, don't touch it. Like, let's keep it going. It would be too risky to work on it because of the impact it could have on our business. Well, anyway, they were hacked. About 500,000 contacts were revealed, like just personal information, to the public, and an investigation was done. And after the investigation was done, they got fined $1.3 million because of negligence on their IT systems. again, that they had these systems that were old and doing their jobs well, but they were not kept patched and up to date. And so, I don't know what's cheaper, $1.3 million in fine or the time, the money it takes over time to keep systems up to date. I don't know all of their systems to answer that question, but it sets a precedence that a private organization can be fined for negligence in their cybersecurity posture.
And what I think is also especially valuable here, Brian, is that it's said a little bit differently. Keeping current hardware is a part of good cybersecurity. I think sometimes maybe folks that might not be familiar with cybersecurity would think, oh, that's just making sure that people can't get into our systems, but it's also the security and the upkeep of those systems that do exist, right? Jason, do you have any thoughts to add there?
No, it's just it's just an interesting article. When I read it, I was thinking about how they're finding private organizations for that, even those that may not fall under a compliance standard, right? We know very well, like in medical or manufacturing, if you're dealing with the government, there's certain compliance standards that you have to kind of follow and adhere to. But even if you don't fall under one of those standards, you still need to have hygiene on your systems. Those standards are the bare minimum, and we should all kind of have some standard that we're trying to follow, and we can help with that. If you don't know where to start, let us know, and we can help you determine what that might be.
Awesome. So this changing landscape, we've talked about the speed, we've talked about the legacy equipment. There's a third element here, and that is, an organization that has seemingly all the ducks in a row, everything working well, policies in place, and there's still risk even there. It's not probably enough just to have precautions against speed and then the legacy systems updated. Let's introduce our team, our users and attendees to a term that they may not have heard before, but let's talk about shadow AI. Jason, would you describe shadow AI in a layperson's term, and maybe tell us about how an organization leader should be looking out for shadow AI and what it means?
Yeah, shadow AI is a term that was borrowed from shadow IT. Shadow IT is when you had somebody who's not in your IT department implementing IT systems kind of outside of your normal standards, right? So they would, if you had your network and they were like, well, I want my own network, and so they'd set up their own little wireless system, and you're like, where did this come from? This can't, this falls outside of our standards. Who's managing this? Who's doing all these things? So that's shadow IT. Shadow AI is the same thing. So as an organization, and we've been preaching this, right? Get an AI usage policy. Maybe you have that in your organization, and maybe you said, yes, we're standardizing on this model, this platform. Here's the licenses. Here's how you get access to it. And then you have somebody who goes outside of that and gets their own license, or maybe not a license at all, and is using AI in a way that has not been approved by your organization for business practices. And so that's what shadow AI is. It happens a lot because people are just so used to, AI is almost being shoved down everyone's throat, so that they're using it at home, they're using it on their mobile devices and other things. And so now those tools are also used for business, and they just happen. Sometimes it's on purpose, sometimes it's not, but it still happens. And so why it's important is that it can cause issues for an organization. One, compliance issues, data integrity issues, and other things. And so having a strong governance policy and in place, and then the means to kind of monitor and detect, when shadow AI is maybe occurring within your network and in your organization. Again, this can be hard, but we should maybe talk through this a bit. So oftentimes, and I think this analogy here on this slide is nice. Think of it like a credit card. So if you have a credit card, it's intended to be used, right? You need to use it. You need to use it to purchase things within your business. Same with AI. If you have an AI usage policy, you want to use, and all business leaders that we talk to say, yes, I would love to use AI in a responsible way to better our processes, capabilities, efficiencies, all the things that we care about as business leaders. And so we want our employees to use AI, but we need them to use it responsibly and in the proper way. And so it's making sure that we are clearly communicating with our employees and those that we work with how and the proper authorized channels to use AI within our organizations. And so
I think part of that, I was just going to add, is sometimes there's a negative stigma around using AI. Like, for example, if you look at the school systems, right? Like teachers don't want kids using AI because it's considered cheating. Well, what these kids are graduating now and they're coming into the workforce, and in their minds, they have this message, AI is cheating. And so I love to use it, but I don't want my authorities to know about it, right? And so they'll use it because they can get stuff done really fast, but they'll hide it and they won't, right? And so I think part of the messaging in that is that we need to say, yes, we are a pro AI company. We want you to use it. We want you to use it in the open. Here are the ways to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think maybe people are concerned about their performance, and I think everyone who's working maybe has a concern in the back of their mind of, is AI going to replace me one day in my job? I think we've all maybe had that thought. And I think it's becoming clear as we go more and more. It's, maybe there's some small cases where that may occur, but in the most cases, no, I just want you to do your job more efficiently and better and faster and all those things. So using AI is the way to do that. So yeah, I think that's a good thought.
And I just want to emphasize this last step on this slide here. So we're talking about using AI and talking about giving guardrails to teams and to organizations so that it can be used effectively. And always, whenever using AI, especially when we're using AI on behalf of humans, there's a human in the loop concept here, right? And so anytime we're generating code or automation, we need to look at it, right? And we need to make sure that we have eyes on what's happening. What I find interesting is that AI wins when it starts to replace human judgment. Now things are evolving and things are moving quickly, but it's also contributing to the security risk that we're seeing. Brian, can you touch a little bit on how these AI-enabled phishing and social engineering changes are impacting the way businesses should train, protect, and verify their people?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, the history of cybersecurity is the basics, right? It's how can I get past I guess really the person at the guardhouse to get into the castle, and so this is this is the stuff that's been happening since the dawn of time in terms of humanity and with wartime and anything like that. With cybersecurity, social engineering is typically done through phishing, where people will send an email that looks legit, but it is not. It's full of links or instructions that will prompt someone to act either out of fear or out of urgency to do something that the threat actor wants them to do. And so typically, this has historically been done where a threat actor will go to your website, they'll search your LinkedIn, they're going to find out something about your vendors and who you work with, and then they are going to craft an email attack. And then as things have evolved, that has become more and more automated. Well, now it's to the point where AI can do the research. AI can read your website, read your LinkedIn, figure out who your vendors are, and then they will craft an attack. The AI will, and the threat actor doesn't have to lift a finger to do this. So it happens very, very quickly. The other thing I want to bring up is maybe your organization has good email hygiene and good cybersecurity awareness training, how to identify phishing emails when they come in, but perhaps your vendors do not. And so I will say that, knock on wood here, as in the last few years, what we've seen as we have improved our email security systems and our trainings, that the phishing in the organizations that we support has dropped dramatically. However, what happens is we see outside vendors and partners of our clients are getting phished and hacked. And then they will send what looks like legitimate emails from their real email address to our clients with instructions about, hey, payment is now going to look like this. Change where you send payment. Checks get written, or bank drafts get made to a threat actor's account instead of the actual vendor for work that they actually did. So it's scary to see how things have evolved like that. But again, it's same old stuff. It's just accelerated by AI.
Yeah, it's moving so quickly. It's really a fun time. I mean, here we are talking about a lot of scary things, concerning things. There's a lot of fun as to be had as well. And we haven't really talked a whole lot about some of the benefits. But one of the benefits that we can certainly use AI to help us with is to practice, right? So let's take a few minutes and in the last few minutes that we have here, let's talk about an exercise that we have run before, and we've also run it on behalf of some of our clients. Let's Jason, maybe can you help walk us through a tabletop exercise where we can maybe model some of these attacks or share information. What does that look like for those who haven't heard the term table exercise? Jason, I guess you're our dictionary today. What is a tabletop exercise? What does it look like?
Yeah, that's where you would come up with a scenario, business scenario or event that would occur within your organization. You would bring all the parties that would need to be involved as part of the decision making and execution of the plan that you have in place. And then you would just walk through how you would go about doing that. So you're simulating that experience or event, and then kind of role playing what your response would be. And you would just go through everything. So we've got 3 examples up here, like a vendor payment. Somebody sends an email saying, hey, we've got new banking instructions, that scenario that Brian just talked about. An email that says, this looks legit, or maybe the email is a bit suspicious and they report it. Maybe it looks like somebody reports that your email has been hacked. Like what is your response to that? What's the steps? Who's involved? How do you communicate, and who and when and what and why? And then there's an active firewall vulnerability in your organization, and says, hey, we need to do this now. What's the impact on the business if all of a sudden you had to shut your internet off, or your phone system off, or email stopped flowing, those sort of things. And so these are really telling. I think we can all, and not to open up a can of traumatic memories here, but we can all think back to Helene, when Hurricane Helene came through, and every business in the region here was affected in some way, right? Whether it was power, water, internet, being able to receive, equipment or supplies or things like that. What did your organization learn from Helene? What was your communication strategy? Now, Helene's an extreme example, right? That's 1 in 1,000, or hopefully 1,000 examples. But what did you learn? And so then take the lessons learned there and apply them to these things here. Brian, you've been involved with some of these that we've done, right? So what is your experience as you go through this? Like, are you able to uncover holes? Are you able to then strengthen as you go through these tabletop exercises?
Yeah, I think what I enjoy the most from them is when I just see light bulbs go off in leaders' minds of, oh, if this vulnerability was to surface in your environment, it means that we would have to take these remediation steps, which means that, like you said, we would have to take these systems offline. And so in the event of that being taken offline to protect and preserve integrity of data or right of security of data, how would your business respond? How could you continue to serve your clients without impacting the level of and quality of service to a degree that would be unacceptable, right? That would ruin your reputation or create bad, uncomfortable situations for your clients. And so it's in those moments they're like, well, good question. if we didn't have that, because normally we would chat through our chat application, or right, they have these normal ways of communicating, and if those are all of a sudden cut off, they have to fall back to something else. And so it's really helpful just to highlight those and be like, great, just as long as you have a plan, communicate with everybody that that's the plan, and then you're ready for whenever that event happens.
Yeah, it's great practice, right? I don't know if everybody in our audience, if anybody in our audience for that matter, follows sports, but anybody who's ever been in a competitive athletic environment at any level has probably heard their coach, not Allen Iverson, talk about practice, right? And how the repetition and doing things over and over again are what create the skills and the resilience that help us work through something. This is a great example of what practice can do for us, right? Mm-hmm. So what have we missed? Brian, you have any closing thoughts for us? We have just a few minutes, about 10:36. We have a few minutes left here. What would you, if there was one takeaway that you wanted to share with our audience today and those who will listen to our presentation afterwards, what would you share?
Yeah, I think the takeaway would be this, that cybersecurity hygiene is evolving, but it doesn't drastically change. Like, we still need to do the regular things like backups and have endpoint security and have firewalls, and just regular IT cybersecurity hygiene will always be there. That's not going away. It's just that we need to be mindful and layer on some higher awareness that the old path of, okay, like Jason said earlier, patch vulnerabilities when they come and then we're safe and then we can rest easy. I think that mentality needs to change in a big way. That cyber, like, when we think about your assets in your organization that are valuable, your digital assets, that there needs to be a higher level of engagement with IT, with cybersecurity teams, with the AI teams that are starting to be created now, to really think about how can we keep ourselves continuously safe and perpetually safe. That's probably my biggest takeaway.
Awesome. Jason, what would you add to that?
Oh, I would just say stay vigilant. I think a lot of business leaders understand the threats. Then the big question is, how do we address them? How do I combat against these things? And I would say it's if you try to do it yourself, which you can, you got to hire people and different things. There's just a lot of information that's coming. That's one way. The other way is to align yourself with somebody who's walking the path already and has walked the trail. And so find somebody that you can trust, is going to give you the information that you need, understands your business, and kind of align yourself with them and have them help you. But don't sweep it under the rug. It's not something that can be ignored at this point anymore. It's if you do, eventually it's going to bite you. So
I think it's ironic to point out to everybody that Justin, the leader of our security team, was supposed to be on the call with us today, and he can't because there's a threat, right? Like so even right now, like we're here to talk about this, but we have the leader of the security team that can't be here because of an incident that needs attention from the security team. And so it happens all the time, and we're just kind of used to it, and we can laugh it off. But it does take constant watching over things.
yeah.
Absolutely. Brian, Jason, thank you so much for taking some time out of your morning to spend with us and to share some really important information. Hopefully everybody's had something to take away. Let's take a moment and see if there's any questions or anybody that would like to ask something specific to their organization. We won't take very much time here, but is there anybody that would like to ask a question while we have a captive audience? You could either enter a question in chat or raise your hand. Either one of those would be fine.
There was a question earlier that was saying, well, if somebody has their own personal paid paid ChatGPT subscription, is that considered shadow AI? And I did respond in the chat, so you can read that. But I think it would all depend on your organization's policy. Some organizations may be okay with that, others may not be, and so it's going to be based off of the organization's policy.
But I would lead with saying, yeah, that is like that. That's kind of where I would start. Is yes.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. But to Jason's point, and again, everything's changing so quickly, and every situation is just a little bit unique. And so, as we, you might find yourself with questions after our discussion. Sometimes those questions come at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep at night. Sometimes they come, as you're getting ready for work in the morning, whatever it may be. Want to make sure everybody knows that we provide roadmaps. So our whole focus, especially for our partners, is that every organization needs a roadmap. And so this AI roadmap is available to each of our partners. It's something that you must have. You really need this. And so it's something we provide. Speaking of just interest and busyness, we also have an AI expert, Keith, who wasn't able to be on our call because he's visiting with a client and helping further refine how we're using AI in our partners organization. So we would like and invite everybody to schedule some time with our AI experts. And if you'd like a handy way to do that, here is a QR code that you can use to schedule that. Again, roadmaps, part of a service that we offer for our partners to make sure that some of these security elements we've talked about today are considered in your environments. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We appreciate everybody's time. We look forward to seeing you either at your office or at ours. I want to just quickly remind everybody one more time that we do have a course next Thursday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., and lunch is a part of that course. If you're interested, send the lovely Miranda an email and we'll get you confirmed and registered. And we look forward to spending some time with you in person then.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye now.